I first want to thank some tremendous staff members who have made today possible. I want to thank our friends at the City of Cleveland, at Cuyahoga County, for agreeing to speak today on this important topic, and to staff for helping us prep for the day. I also want to thank our library. Cleveland Public Library has been an absolute tremendous partner in this event, and thank you, Director Thomas, for all of your work and your staff's work, and really helping us pull off today's event. I'd like to acknowledge the OEC staff and borough, some who traveled in for this event. Very excited to have them here. As many of you have seen, we have food along the side. There are bathrooms right outside, and we are live streaming this evening's event, and we'll have a recording available for everyone afterwards. Just a moment for me. Protecting the environment has been a real passion of mine for a long time. If you would have seen 8-year-old Emily, she was excited about the environment, protecting trees on my street in Bedford where I grew up. But protecting the environment has come into even sharper focus for me over the last year in becoming a parent and making sure that my little one has clean air to breathe, safe water to drink, and vibrant public spaces all around him that we can access by foot and by bike. I love to work with talented colleagues and tremendous partners, many of you in this room, each and every day alongside our local elected officials to improve the state of our environment, not just for my family, but for each of our families and our neighbors and our friends. Before we dive into our conversation with Executive Ronayne and Mayor Bibb, I'd like to introduce two of my colleagues, the first of which is OEC's Executive Director. She's still claiming a fairly new title. She hasn't been in the position yet a year. And so I'd like to welcome Carol Kaufman, OEC's Executive Director, to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Lovely to see you all. I said I'm going to do a boomer moment and have my notes on my iPad, but then I was told it's not just for boomers, other people can do this too. So trying to lessen my paper count. So yes, thank you, Emily, for that great introduction. I am Carol Kaufman, the Executive Director for the Ohio Environmental Council, and just wanted to welcome all of you. Many of you know us very well and are very familiar with the OEC. Some of you might be newer to the Ohio Environmental Council, and so I wanted to take just a very brief moment to share a little bit about who we are and where we came from. So we are a 55-year-old organization, and we were founded in 1969, and I don't think I need to ask this room what else might have happened in 1969. We know that the Cuyahoga River caught fire that year, and in response to that, ordinary Ohioans pulled together and they said, we need to do something to protect our state's natural resources. And so that was really where we were birthed. And today, 55 years strong, we are focused across the state of Ohio on issues related to clean energy and climate, safe, affordable water, land, especially the protection of our beloved state lands, and democracy, which is a necessary building block for any kind of real progress and for ensuring that Ohioans' voices are heard on the issues that matter to them. The OEC is also a member of a family of organizations. So in 2015, we founded the OEC Action Fund, which is a C4 organization that gives us additional tools to do lobbying on environmental issues. We can do candidate endorsements and have really been effectively using that organization to build up and support many environmental champions, some of whom you'll hear from tonight. And that's been just a really incredible addition to the OEC's family of organizations in the last 10 years. So what led me here is, as Emily said, I am still claiming my newbie card until someone, pries it out of my fingers. And I thought I'd tell you what led me here. So number one, like Emily, I really love Ohio's natural resources. I was born and raised in Ohio, have many fond memories of playing in the creek and visiting our Great Lake with my family and swimming in the water. And I'm really motivated to pass down a good home to my children and grandchildren as well. But I also have a special love for the organization. So I am one of those Buckeyes that moves away and comes back, a little bit of a boomerang. And I lived overseas for about 4 years. And when I moved back to Ohio in 2017, I really wanted to get involved in making my home state a better place. And I looked around and was naturally led to the OAC. I said, this is the organization that's speaking for me on the issues that I care about, and they're making a difference. And that led me to join the board of the OAC in 2018, position that I was thrilled to serve on until last year, at which point I joined the staff as the executive director, and it's been an incredible journey since then. I spent a lot of time building relationships. You would not believe how many former executive directors there are of the OAC. There's probably someone here tonight. So there's lots of people to get to know, lots of history to learn, and really I just enjoy it and take the responsibility so to heart that we have such a great legacy to protect and uphold. But we've also been focused on our democracy work in the last year, including really supporting that August special election victory and doing a lot of leadership in coalition with other organizations. We had a successful response to the East Palestine train derailment that just passed its 1-year anniversary this past week. We also had a legal victory protecting nearly 1,500 acres of white oaks from clear cutting in Wayne National Forest last year. It was a huge win for our law center. And we also saw 584 megawatts of new clean energy generation capacity approved at 3 sites around the state, a huge win for our energy team. And our water team helped secure a record $270 million in funding for continuation and expansion of the H2 Ohio program in the state's budget. But that's not really why you're here tonight. What about Cleveland? Because we all know that Cleveland rocks. So we're going to talk about Cleveland tonight. And the OEC has been invested, especially over the past 5 years, in really deepening the focus that we have on climate and environmental justice here in Cleveland. We work in partnership with many other nonprofits, and many of whom are represented here this evening. And we're committed to continuing to help coordinate and amplify the collective work that we do together. And then through the work of the OAC Action Fund, as I mentioned, we've helped elect and support climate champions, including both Mayor Bibb and Executive Ronayne, who are here tonight. But that's not all. As we continue, we're preparing to launch into our next 3-year strategic plan, and we're looking for ways to apply the lessons that we've learned here in Cleveland to other important metro areas around the state. So before I share too much more about Cleveland, I think it's time for me to pass the baton to Brian Siggers, our Cleveland Metro Advocacy Director. He is going to be leading the conversation this evening and also can tell you a little bit more about our work. Passing it to Brian. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Brian Siggers, and I serve as the Cleveland Metro Advocacy Director for the Ohio Environmental Council. As you heard from Carol, we believe that Ohio is at the forefront of environmental change. We are not just observers, but active participants in shaping a healthy and sustainable future. Our work here in Cleveland is a testament to what can be achieved when we unite for a common cause. As many of you may know, in 2021 and in 2022, several individuals and organizations came together to develop a comprehensive environmental policy platforms for Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. Their collective efforts were aimed to collaborate with incoming administrations and advance the goals outlined in each platform. So if you or your organization participated in the work of our Cleveland Environmental Advocacy Coalition, will you please stand at this time? Well, who's that? Thank you, Dad. Thank you. Thank you all. The OEC is proud to work with environmental partners and advocates to diligently advance key policies to improve the state of our environment, from completing green streets to renewable energy aggregation and many more projects along the way. These policy wins underscore a collective effort of every supporter, every organizer, and citizen who envisions a cleaner and greener future in our city. My work with the OEC, but specifically with local partners and elected leaders, has been rewarding. Cleveland has been at the forefront of environmental policy, and it is clear that our region is poised to meet the moment again. We are fortunate to have strong leadership in Mayor Bibb and Executive Ronay, who are leaders who understand the urgency to address climate change and advance environmental justice. As we look to the future, we have to remember that our work is far from over. The challenges we face are significant but not insurmountable. Together, we can continue to make a difference, and we can ensure that the greater Cleveland region serves the model for a sustainable future. And with that said, I would like to bring up the leaders of our great region, Executive Ronay and Mayor Bibb, for a fireside chat. So. You like that? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I didn't get the green memo, though. I should have worn a green tie.
Mayor Bibb, Executive Ronay, thank you for being here with us today. We appreciate to have this conversation with you guys. So to start us off, I want to open up with a look back and a look forward. So to Mayor Bibb and Executive Ronay, what environmental accomplishments are you most proud of during your time in office to date? And then what are your top 3 priorities heading into the remainder of your respective terms when it comes to climate action and environmental priorities? We'll start with you, Mayor Bibb.
Well, thank you so much. First, let's show some love for the Cleveland Public Library for hosting us here this evening. An amazing community partner. We just kicked off an amazing Cleveland Reads campaign under the leadership of Felton Thomas. So Felton, thanks so much for your leadership on that important campaign for Cleveland's children. Really appreciate it. We can clap for Cleveland Reads. Very well done. First, I think it's so important to recognize that the work that the county executive and I do every single day can't get done without an amazing team. And so I think at City Hall, we've built a very aggressive, focused team that wakes up every single day looking at how do we do a better job of advancing climate justice and sustainability. So I want to recognize Sarah O'Keefe and Anand, who lead our department. Say hello to everybody begin. I think there are 3 things we've done immediately. Number 1, when I took office, our city was at a crisis in terms of our recycling program. We quickly uncovered that we really didn't have a recycling program in the city of Cleveland. And now in just 2 years, we have one of the lowest contamination rates in the state of Ohio in terms of recycling. Got it done in just 2 years. Secondly, Brian, as you know, Cleveland is one of the most energy burdened cities in the country. And we've worked very closely with many grassroots community partners to expand our low to moderate income program to allow residents to have free solar panels on their homes. Already that program has saved nearly 70% in terms of their energy costs and energy burden for those residents. So excited about that program. I think the other thing we're excited about that we've established at City Hall is a laser focus on how do we make sure that the benefits of the green economy are broad-based. We are a majority black city, and if black folks and brown folks don't get access to not just the benefits of the green economy from good paying jobs, but also recognize how this impacts our daily lived experience, we aren't doing our job at City Hall. And so I think we've created a strong foundation on those 3 fronts. Thank you very much, Mayor. Executive Ronay.
Oh, good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to say to Mayor Bibb, my family appreciates the efforts on the recycling front. It was a wonderful restoration you and your team did, so thanks to all of you. As a Cleveland resident, we appreciate you, Mayor. I have to give also a couple of quick shout outs. Director Thomas, thank you to you and your team. Had an amazing entry into this building tonight. It's always good to be back at the People's University. To see 78-year-old William Spencer on the way in, who works here. He's a veteran from Vietnam. And I said, what are you doing tonight? He said, I'm on my way to school. 78-year-old employee from the People's University. I said, what are you studying? He says, out at Case Western, I'm studying medical bioethics. Wow, that's a continued learning journey here at the People's University. So thanks to you and your team for all you do here, but just inspiring us all the time. I also wanted to quickly give a couple of other shouts out. I'd be remiss if I didn't start the evening by thanking the Cleveland and Gun Foundation. I'm looking at my partners Stephen Love and John Mennerholzer and Paul Kemp in between. We thank you guys. They have continued to inspire us in the philanthropic community, especially in that public nonprofit partnership to do better. And so I just wanted to say thank you to you. And lastly, I got two lastlies. One, since Mayor Bibb brought up his team, I'll bring him up again and again, but Mike Furley, somewhere out here, our Director of Sustainability, Valerie Katz, our Assistant Director, and their team. Thank you guys for what you do to inspire me to do good work every day at the county. They're going to be working on a very exciting project I'm going to mention in a minute, but they have kept the work going at Cuyahoga County and moved the needle. And finally, I just need to say to Brian Siggers and Courtney, congrats on your wedding in October. Thank you, and congrats. Give me a shout. Natalie and I are out of town, but this is the wedding gift you have to give the couple. I had to give a check in their name to Ohio Environmental Council. Probably not fair, but that's a good worthy cause. So kudos to OEC. All right, two questions. Sorry for that long-winded intro, but I had to get those out and were the intros. Also want to give a shout to my friend and former colleague at City Hall, Matt Zone, who started a sustainability effort with Andrew Roderson at City and Never Look Back. So, with all those things being said, what's county doing? Three things you asked me about in no particular order. I'll say this. One, it is exciting to now be a part of an initiative to bring forth a public utility that will work with Cleveland Public Power and others to bring forth alternatives for our consumers, and that is Cuyahoga Green Energy, which we launched this past year. We need to have renewables in our portfolio. We will because of Cuyahoga Green Energy. Our early start work is going to be in commercial and industrial districts. We've already got some early proof of concept of work in places like Euclid, and it's exciting to see CGE taking off. Stay tuned on Cuyahoga Green Energy. I was moved in this state to say we got to have a better way. They moved that ball forward. And the news is Michael's going to go over and direct that operation and bring some of his team with him. So thanks. I think Cuyahoga Green Energy is our most exciting new initiative. Second thing I want to say as it relates to just what we've done, I work with the great Mayor Bibb in the great city of Cleveland, but I also work with 56 other mayors, 57 communities and 2 townships. So 57 mayors. We have worked through, again, the advances of our foundation partners helping us move this along to really engage our suburban communities in the climate conscious activist effort. And I would say if you took account, Michael, I think Michael Jeans, we were at your place last time at Growth Ops, we probably had 20 suburban mayors join us in an effort to just do better by green strategy. So convener leadership is what we're trying to do in the 59 communities of Cuyahoga County. This is a big expanse. We have 475 square miles on land in Cuyahoga County and another 700 over the water. If you didn't know that fun fact, 2/3 of your county is in Lake Erie. And that's the last thing I'm going to say. A few of you have commented regularly on Apino, where it's the Great Lakes. The third initiative that I'm going to be looking forward to working with Mayor Bibb and others on is what we're calling the Freshwater Institute. The recognition that this is a city that, yes, in 1969 we share that anniversary with OEC, but 55 years ago that river burned for the last time on the 13th River Fire, and as Mayor Bibb and I've showed the story many times, we need to honor the story of Carl Stokes and his work in Washington with his brother Lou to bring forth essentially the Clean Water Act and ultimately the US EPA. But it started here in a conscious effort by public leadership in Cleveland. Well, let's take that narrative of a city where a river burned and where the city has turned. And again, with great respect to the work of the climate mayor who's chairing now the Climate Mayors Group, we want to take this out literally to the globe and say, in the freshwater capital here in the Great Lakes Basin, centered here in Cleveland, Ohio, we want to bring forth the Freshwater Institute. So our early work in the Freshwater Institute has been to build the cornerstones of education, advocacy, research, and economic development. And on those foundation platforms, we're going to launch. We were lucky to have been pledged and earmarked by Congresswoman Chantal Brown for $500,000. So give it up to Congresswoman Brown for that effort. It's good stuff. I hope she's out somewhere listening to us. We need the budget to get approved in Washington, and that's not her fault, but she's pledged her support. So what we're going to do early on is get an education partnership together with our kids who need to know that story of Carl and Lou Stokes, but who also have to touch the water and may live a mile from the water and never been to or on that water, and such that they are the future stewards of that freshwater basin. And so I'm pledging to move this Freshwater Institute forward. We launched it this year. We got some funding and some early seed money pledged to us, and we're going to move it forward. So from energy to clean water to just doing the right thing as a convener leader model, that's what we're doing.
Thank you for that. Thank you both for your responses on a lot of the local work that's going on. And I want to take a moment to zoom out a little bit and just talk about what's being done beyond our region. So, Executive Renee, you recently attended your second United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP. What lessons did you learn there, and how are you working to apply those here in Cuyahoga County?
Yeah, there are, first of all, I hope all those outtakes and all those notes over those conferences that we've been to become somehow available to everybody, because as I said at a forum yesterday at GCP, I want to go through the rows and speed date with you on what you know about what we should be doing and listen to what your ideas are. But the most important thing is Michael Jeans, who was with me, and Deepa, who's out there, and our partners at the foundations who are with us can attest to, is that we're learning from the world. We're learning from 190 nations who were there talking about what they're doing and just seeing what's possible. Seeing floating solar outfits in Japan offshore that we could power up here, and power a port in Cleveland. Talking to John Mitterholzer, John, I keep bringing up your idea, but the idea that we could power transit lines off of things like solar, and seeing what other countries are doing, but other cities within the American states, seeing what Los Angeles is doing, using the Olympics as a deadline to go carbon free on their transit lines. Audacious goal, but we're going to be watching LA. What I'm interested in is what's the supply chain to get GCRTA the right product to make it happen, right? So we're listening to what other countries are doing. There's some sad stories at COP to see for the second year Ukraine point out the devastation of soil and what's happening to their farming capability because of the war is heartbreaking, right? But it's a narrative that the world needs to know and see up front. So COP, first and foremost, is about education. 2 years ago, it was thrilling to see Special Envoy Kerry actually talk about loss and damages in a way that the U.S. needs to participate in and move the needle on that. This past year, I want to say, there was more optimism. I think in a 1-year increment, there just seems to be people moving further faster. I'm glad Mayor Bibb is totally tuned in on this. Mayor Ginther was there out of Columbus. Where the work is really going to happen is what the UN calls as the sub-nationals. That's us, metros and cities. It's where the work's going to happen on really doing our good work on climate.
Thank you very much, Executive Renee. And then Mayor Bibb, as Executive Renee referenced earlier, you recently became the chair of the Climate Mayors, which is a bipartisan peer-to-peer network of U.S. mayors working together to demonstrate leadership on climate change. Can you explain what priorities you hope to address as chair and what that means for Cleveland? Yeah, one of the biggest things we have recognized and see on a daily basis as mayors across the country is that a majority of Americans have no idea what the Inflation Reduction Act is, what the bipartisan infrastructure bill is, all these great, amazing federal programs. Everyday working folks have no clue what these things are. But you know what they do know? They want safe drinking water, clean air to breathe, and good paying jobs. And so one of our big mandates this year for Climate Mayors is to really change the narrative and really meet our residents where they are in terms of talking about these broad-based benefits and how they can transform their respective cities. Now, we were at the U.S. Conference of Mayors event last summer in Columbus, and there was some research being done, and it said that a majority of Americans had no idea that the Inflation Reduction Act was focused on addressing climate change. And this president, our president, Joe Biden, arguably has created the largest investment out of any country in the world to address climate change. We got to tell that story, and that'll be a big part of our work this year. The second thing we're focused on is also making sure that we have regional conversations about the distinct needs, challenges, and opportunities that we see in our respective cities, because what we have to get done in Cleveland is very different than what my brother mayor is doing in Jackson, Mississippi, Choke, Alabama, where a Republican governor
and a Republican-led legislature are undermining his ability to get clean water into Jackson because it's a majority black city. Or, my colleague in Tucson, Arizona, Mayor Romero, who is now going to plant nearly 1 million trees in Tucson to really address the heat islands they have in Tucson. Same with Mayor Kay Gallego as well in Phoenix. And so we believe these regional conversations will allow us to have more compelling dialogue with our Republican counterparts in the State House and governor's mansions, but also make sure we're giving the right feedback to the administration so that our cities can get more than their fair share of resources of all the federal investment that's out there. The last thing we're focused on is the biggest part and the most hardest part of my job as mayor is capacity, capacity, capacity. We get so many inquiries from folks who want to help us at City Hall, or they want to launch new programs or initiatives. I wish I could say yes to everything, but we lack the capacity to do this. And so we are going to be creative as climate mayors to think about how do we build better capacity at the local level to do this important work. And we're going to have a big, exciting announcement coming soon about more capacity coming to Cleveland as well on this topic. So stay tuned.
Thank you very much.
I wish I could break the news, but I can't. We'll wait patiently for that news, Bear. Thank you very much. Speaking on the national level and federal investments, I'm going to chat about that for a minute. So the Biden-Harris administration, you mentioned the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Inflation Reduction Act. Can you give any examples of ways where the city and county are working together to secure federal funding to advance key projects to support a healthier environment and provide cost share programs? And we'll start with Mayor Bibb on this one. Yeah, well, the county executive and I are heading to Washington next week to talk about our moonshot moment to finally make Cleveland one of the best two waterfront cities in America. We are pursuing a bold, ambitious plan to revitalize the riverfront and the lakefront with Lake Erie. And we believe that this administration recognizes the importance of transforming Cleveland and Northeast Ohio's waterfront. So that's one opportunity. Secondly, the county executive and I are both on the board and serve as leaders of the board of NOACA. We just got a $15 million investment from Secretary Buttigieg to expand EV charging across the entire NOACA region, and many of those EV charging stations will be in the great city of Cleveland and across Cuyahoga County. And then we're also working very closely to make sure that we work with our private sector partners around really understanding the plethora and spectrum of these federal investments. This administration has rolled out novel initiatives like direct pay that gives us creative financing to tap into all the investments coming down the pipeline. Amazing new tax credits as well around giving folks the ability to buy more, electric vehicles, et cetera. But the biggest thing the county executive and I can do in terms of good quality job growth is make sure we have active dialogue and proactive collaboration with the private sector, because we can't do it alone in government, and we have an amazing opportunity to decarbonize every sector of our economy in Cleveland and across Cuyahoga County. That's going to allow us to be a globally competitive region once again. So that private sector collaboration to make sure that the private sector can get benefits from these federal investments is also a big part of our conversation as well.
And first of all, speaking of private sector, I want to point out Chanel Wiggins-Smith, who moved from public to private, but she was at COP as well, and to have the banking community there meant a lot, because the finance community is important in the environmental justice movement. So just want to point that out, and Sarah O'Keefe as well, who was there. Any one of these folks you could talk to about COP28 as they were there, but it was important to have, as the mayor just referenced, that private-public nonprofit partnership. A few things. I just need to say this. I think I'm among the converted when I say this. When Mayor Bibb's in Washington, it is a good thing. He is, can I get a yes on that? Thank you. Thank you. I probably average about half as many visits as you, but I want We want a mayor who is making Cleveland visible, right? And who knows the White House personalities, who knows Secretary Buttigieg, who can get people on the phone, who can raise money. That's what he's been doing. And that's powerful for our future. Maybe I'm just among friends saying that, but I just needed to say that because when we're there together, it's thrilling to be there. But I'm always just happy when I hear he's been in D.C. Let me just pivot on a couple of points as it relates to kind of aspirational stuff as it relates to federal. I'm hopeful that we together can be a real pivot point, literally and figuratively, on Amtrak. I think this, again, as you referenced, we're both on the NWACA MPO board. I do not think East, West, North, South is mutually exclusive. You know, we need to run lines Chicago, Detroit, and we need to run 3CD, and we need to take all the love we can get, and it doesn't happen that often, but when we can get it from Columbus, we need love, you know, and so I'm hopeful that we can together really move the needle on rail, recognizing the logistical hub that this place here is in Cleveland-Cuyahoga County. And so that's going to be, again, I think on our shared future agenda. Second thing I want to say is on the ports. I'm lucky to have had some experience. Was chairman of the board of the port, and there's a powerful opportunity with the port, for, you know, to do everything we can to decarbonize and to power up through renewables, but also to celebrate our position on the Great Lakes as the easternmost port with container service, which means we can get out the door and get to market in Europe faster than, as I've said in a few other forums recently, faster than they can out of the eastern ports of the mid-Atlantic. And the reason is we're not congested. We can move goods to market faster. Well, what does that mean for climate? It means it is the cleanest way to transport goods is by over the seas and to other nations. I hope we can double down on port investment through our incredible moment in time with this administration on federal support. And then finally, I'd be remiss, I don't know if she's with us tonight, but I was with her earlier today at one of the foundations, but Kim Foreman's a great example of how, oh, thank you, Kim, there you are. I'm sorry, I didn't have you in my approving. But I see, even if I didn't know you were here, I want to say, Kim, just how much was the federal grant that you pulled in through Marlboro Health? $10 million. So never underestimate, she dropped that earlier today, and I just wanted to repeat it if you weren't here. Never underestimate the power of a nonprofit to bring in federal dollars, as well as the proof of concept to start very locally on climate work at the Healthy Homes level. That's where it's at. And I just appreciated you saying that earlier today, that yes, we're going to be out, you know, lobbying for federal support through city and county, but our nonprofits are, and you a great example, doing great work. So strategies, again, from my perspective, is transportation rail, transportation port, and starting at the local level and support a Healthy Homes initiative where it really matters.
Thank you both for that. Just to dive in a little bit deeper, how the city and county governments plan to maximize state and federal resources to assess and address water infrastructure issues like lead service lines?
Yeah, we're working very closely with the DeWine administration on eliminating lead service lines in our daycare centers across the city of Cleveland. That's been a major priority. And the governor as well just supported us with a investment around addressing our lead paint crisis in Cleveland as well too. And so, you know, they've been, when they want to be, they've been a good partner to us in Cleveland on a number of different fronts. And also want to acknowledge the work that we did with the governor's team on installing the first ever public EV charging station in the heart of the southeast side in Lee Harvard at the Frederick Douglass Rec Center. Probably one of my most favorite ribbon cuttings I've done as a mayor. And I love talking about that example because I remember when we did the ribbon cutting, Miss Elaine Goldstein, who's an icon in Cleveland, was just beaming with joy. And she said, "Mayor, I don't know what it is, but it looks good and it's shiny and it's on the southeast side and I'm happy." That's what this work is all about, making sure that our residents feel seen, feel connected, and feel like they're a part of this green transformation. And we as leaders, not just us as elected officials on the stage, but all of us in this room, we have to do a better job of finding those moments and those opportunities to make our residents feel that they're a part of this work. And I think that's the biggest challenge we have right now in this space.
You know, I would just say that once again, we got an opportunity, great start out of the gates in your first administration moving the needle on lead. We at county, frankly, should be collaborating with you at first suburb level, you know, and I think we're gonna do that. It's a matter where we can sort of regionalize this advocacy effort to take the lead out of homes and pipes, and we will. I was glad to start in our administration. I'm a year behind because I got elected a year after Mayor Bibb, but we both supported each other, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate we both said OEC was one of our first supporters. But we're committed. We started the housing department now in county, led by a veteran, Sarah Parks Jackson, who is focused on what Kim Foreman's focused on, which is the healthy home. You know, the whole package of the home. If there's lead in the home, then let's rewind. And if there's lead in the home, let's address it. If there's lead in the pipes to the home, let's address it. It's got to start with a healthy framework. But we are committed on the housing front, on the mobility front. 2 new initiatives at Cuyahoga County was a dedicated housing department and a mobility department led by, thank you for the loaned executive of Annie Pease, who's running this out there somewhere. But she's been terrific. We do share staff insights. I think I would say that's something that there really isn't anything between us. So I want to learn more from what city's done, back to the question, on their housing work and their lead work. And I need to say this because if I don't get the chance tonight, related loosely, but I'm looking at Kyle Drive as well as in our whole team in NERSD. Thank you guys for the work you do. You are best in class as far as moving the needle on keeping our waterways clean. Thank you, NERSD. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you both for your responses. The last question on that note is, how will the city and county governments plan to maximize state and federal resources to grow our tree canopy and bolster access to parks and green spaces, as well as our lake and riverfronts? We'll start with Executive Romaine.
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, one is, again, back to their Office of Sustainability. They've been running tree canopy investments in communities. We call them competitive grants, but I think most of the communities that apply are able to get them. We obviously want to be thoughtful about as we apply tree canopy and essentially retrofit in the Forest City aggregate large in Cuyahoga County. We want to make sure that we have healthy maintenance plans. Some of you are more expert than I am on this. My wife certainly is, but we want to make sure that it's a sustainable effort within the sustainability effort. But Cuyahoga County's put at least $1 million this year. It's probably need to put more, but that's a healthy head start to get tree canopy back in our community. And I do want to comment on something that Kim and I heard earlier today. I think, Michael, you might have been the one to mention it at a forum. We've had 3 climate forums in 2 days, and that's a good thing. I'll keep it going. But I think you mentioned that at COP 28, there was a comment that, especially from rainforest countries, particularly Brazil, be mindful that you're not planting in unsustainable places. Plant here. Plant in our rainforest where we can absorb, carbon and pollution. And so we need to think locally, and we need to think globally and support efforts in our rainforest regions as well.
I'm happy you brought up the tree canopy. One of my first briefings with OEC was a deep dive on the challenges we had at the time in the city of Cleveland around our tree canopy. And I think, Councilman Zone, you were on that call. We had that briefing. When I saw the data by zip code and census tract in Cleveland, from the east side to the west side, and how air quality was a predictor of how many trees and asthma rates. Like, the data was just so stark to me. And then at the time, I understood climate change from a very theoretical standpoint. But for me, that was a moment where it all clicked in terms of this being a justice issue and racial equity issue, where it shouldn't just be for wealthy parts of our city to have a robust tree canopy, but every part of our city deserves a robust tree canopy. And so we have taken immediate action. We finally brought back our tree canopy commission at the city of Cleveland for the first time in years. We have a great team leading that effort. We're working very closely with many partners in this room to get more funding at the state and federal level to make sure we're planting as many trees as we possibly can. But I think it's also important for us to educate our residents and the private sector when they're developing to incentivize that kind of investment when we're doing large-scale projects in our city. The other thing I'm really excited about, during the pandemic, I read this article in The Economist about the work that Mayor Hidalgo was doing to make Paris a 15-minute city. And I recognized this during the pandemic, and luckily, at the time, I had the privilege to walk to green space within 15 minutes. I had the privilege to walk to a grocery store within 15 minutes. I had the privilege to walk to the lake within 15 minutes, or a park within 15 minutes. But that wasn't the case for many of our residents in Cleveland. And so in my first year in office, we did the city's first ever comprehensive 15-minute cities analysis through an index. And what we discovered was this: in many parts of our city, we are a 15-minute city, but the quality of those amenities aren't what they need to be. And so we are changing our zoning code to incentivize better, high-quality amenities in our neighborhoods. We want to make sure that every child has a world-class park and rec center in their neighborhood. That's why, we can clap for that too. That's why we just commissioned a study led by the team at Olin, and we found that a majority of Clevelanders aren't going to our parks or rec centers because they're not safe or high quality. That's unacceptable to me. And so as we transform and make these historic investments on our waterfronts, I'm going to dedicate a large portion of that funding to make sure we can renovate every park and rec center in every corner of this city, because that will set our city up for a better trajectory for the future. And the last thing I would say is I'm excited to close more streets in Cleveland. We just closed Market Avenue by the West Side Market. We just received a $100,000 grant to close a street in Hingetown. I got some other plans to close streets in the core of downtown and the east side as well. But creating that density, incentivizing more people to walk and take bikes as we work to extend protected bike lanes, that all is going to go a long way for us to achieve our sustainability goals long term. So we're laying a strong foundation, but it's those kind of priorities that are feeding our 15-minute city for Cleveland. And at every level, from the federal to state, we're trying to get resources to finance this long-term vision for our great city.
Thank you, Mayor Bibb. Thank you both for your responses on that. We want to shift gears and talk about energy for a moment. And we'll start with Executive Ronayne. So in 2021, Cuyahoga County became the first county in the country in 75 years to start their own utility. How will the county leverage microgrids as a part of its strategy for adopting green energy solutions?
Well, we're open for business, and I think everybody that can help us with applications, we want to talk to you. I think the early low-hanging fruit is with, like I said earlier, our commercial districts and some of our industrial areas that we can work with mayors to just power up. And we need, you guys all know this, I mean, we go through the calamities of power outages. I said this last week in a forum. I'm jealous of my sister-in-law that works for a public power company in Fort Collins, Colorado, and she's over the holidays sort of bragging about their redundant system and their buried utilities and if something goes wrong, it's minutes, not days. We got a lot of work to do, right? They learned from the East out West, so I don't blame us as much, but we gotta catch up. Cuyahoga Green Energy is exactly that. And speaking with Mike yesterday, we are our early proofs of concept are coming out of the commercial industrial districts. Our longer stretch goals is to power up our residencies with Cuyahoga Green Energy and start to apply those renewable that portfolio to homes with the goal of being affordability, efficiency, and climate practice that's good for the future. So, and it's a work with us. And if any of you got ideas, questions, really bring them to Mike. And we're excited. I think this just like the mayor, what you do and how you staff, your intentionality. What speaks to it is two things: staff and budget. How you align your staff to your priorities and how you budget to that end. And my priority is to produce a better alternative for our citizens with Cuyahoga Green Energy.
Thank you, Executive Ronayne. And then Mayor Bibb, we have a great community asset in Cleveland with Cleveland Public Power, and a new asset with the County Municipal Utility. What will you do now to get CPP on the path to 100% clean energy in line with their aggressive climate action goals?
Well, the first thing we have done is we brought in a new leader, and Commissioner Danielson, who brings a wealth of expertise, and he's hit the ground running.
We work really well with him.
That's good to
Thank
hear.
you. I
That's
just
good to
want
hear.
say we
I'll send
appreciate it.
that note back. And I think he's really hit the ground running to really take stock of what's working well at CPP and what's not working well. So that was priority number one. Secondly, ongoing conversations with investors from the private and public sector about additional capital to transform and modernize our grid. That's a key part of our strategy long term. And then thirdly, I would say this. We are in a labyrinth of a complicated contract with AMP. I'm working with legal counsel as we speak to identify legal strategies and various mechanisms to either get out or restructure that contract. We have a long way to go, but it's going to take time, but we're laying the right groundwork with our leadership team to ensure we can protect and modernize and transform CPP for the next 100 years. Thank you both for your responses there. Mayor Bibb, a theme that you've addressed throughout the night is equity and environmental justice. So to that note, I want to ask you both, how are the city and county working to ensure that environmental justice is a central consideration in policy and initiatives? And Mayor, we'll start with you. Well, listen, I think it's a part of everything that we do. I'm really happy that on a quarterly basis, it's quarterly, right, Sarah? A quarterly basis, I'm meeting with environmental activists who are laser focused on racial equity and environmental justice, and excited to be talking about this stuff at every level of government. I was with Chair Mallory, who leads the President's Council on Environmental Quality, and she's excited about the work we're doing as a Justice 40 community here in Cleveland. So the country's watching us because of our long storied history on this topic. And the thing that I want us to do a better job of as a collective body here is we have to start talking about the good paying jobs and the economic opportunities that are going to come out of this new green economy movement. We put $10 million of American Rescue Plan funds to solely focused on a workforce development initiative about jobs in the built environment. That's training folks to weatherize homes, training folks to put solar on homes. We are training people to lay fiber all across our city. There are good paying jobs that are being created. And we're also talking about how do we make sure that our supply chains that are going to be created are inclusive, led by minority-owned businesses to take advantage of this historic federal investment. And so we need to center our work, wages, and wealth agenda when we talk about the environmental justice movement.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
I am again glad to kind of track with Mayor Bibb on how we are staffing and what we are doing. And two of the to be very soon filled positions at Cuyahoga County, we're going to have a Deputy Chief of Staff of Climate Sustainability, and we are going to have a Senior Advisor on Health Equity and Justice. And I think you cannot talk about the subject of climate without talking about health, without talking about environmental justice and equity. So it's intentional in how, again, we staff and we align and who we bring on to the team. And that I wanted to say in context, I think it is, for me, I have to work as I love to. I live 3 miles from City Hall in this city, a great city of Cleveland, but I work across those 477 square miles I mentioned. And getting suburban mayors to understand and to lead, many of them are already there, but is a work that we're working on every day. I was excited a few weeks back when the mayors and managers met at Rittal, and every mayor in the county saw what Randall McShepard and his team have done at Rittal. Mentioned to Kim this afternoon, yesterday I was with Mayor Blackwell in Maple Heights, and we stopped at Riddall's farm market in Maple Heights, and to see that ecosystem of a place where literally a neighborhood was partially buried because it had become an environmental injustice of a dumping ground, and to see it rise through the work of Rittal, and then see it literally multiply out in other communities of Cuyahoga County, this goes back to convener leader. I want every mayor, no matter the socioeconomics in their town, to see the good work happening in places like the city of Cleveland and then replicate. So we're learning from each other. And so I think it's just, it comes back down to the intentionality of how you're staffing, how you're budgeting, and what you're doing in the conversation with others. And again, shout out one more time to our foundations, the way you guys have powered up mayors in the Power Clean Future for Ohio campaign. We've got mayors engaged. The second thing I want to say quickly is zoning. I as Heller, my neighbor, knows I'm a planner that'll never give it up, but I really feel that there's got to be equity in zoning in our communities. For those who need us most in housing markets, I think we've got to find single room occupancy units in our communities that say, hey, but for I could be there too, be next door, be in my community. We have to work on density zoning. We have to work on accessible housing zoning, affordable housing zoning. And again, looking out to Matt, his colleague for years at City on these matters, we've done it a lot in the city of Cleveland. Kudos to you and many of your overlays and just things that are aspiring and leading developers to a better way. But we've got to do this in our suburbs too. We've got to focus on zoning. This does directly relate to climate and environmental justice. Can I get there? Can I get there by a way other than a car? Am I near a transit line? I'm really with you on the TOD work. And let's look at modernizing zoning codes across communities to create, to the mayor's point about 15-minute communities, I call them complete communities, where you can get what you need, access to affordable housing, on transit, available fresh food as a first choice, not a distant choice, and make these communities work. And I think zoning is a big part of that. So our planning department can create model zoning ordinances for local area planning departments. And we do have a lot of mayors that are on this page right now.
Thank you both for your thoughtful responses. Just follow up with that. I know you guys spoke to staffing and budgeting being some of the things, but what specific measures are being taken to address disparities and promote inclusivity in environmental decision making?
Not enough, to be honest, but I would say it's not for the lack of efforts of people in this room. A few things. I was struck by a counterpart team up in Hennepin County, Minneapolis. It's a different community than ours. They're a bit different from us, but I think that their narrative on where they're going is important. They're focused on disparity reduction, and I think we're at a dangerous brink when we have seen sort of whatever the equivalent of greenwashing is in the DEIA conversation. We're at a dangerous precipice here. We got to really drill down on disparity reduction, right? Let's see the numbers of where we have disparity, and let's go right to it. I think somebody at lunch, I don't know if it was you, Kim, that somebody at lunch basically said today, well, we know the issues, you've said it, let's get to working on solving them, right? So I guess Brian, first thing is my focus with our administration is disparity reduction in community. We're creating what we're calling geographically informed government, where the citizenry can interface with us through a program called GUIDE, which is a geographically informed data exchange system. I want this to be a two-way street. I want our citizens to be able to say, from East Cleveland, this real-time example, just on the western stretches of East Cleveland, there's dumping going on, right? There's tires that just appeared this weekend that weren't there last weekend, and I want the citizens to inform us of environmental justice in real time and have access. And if digital, because of the divide, isn't the only way, then we got to find multiple vehicles to the conversation. I also want to say one more shout out to Chanel and some of the work you've done in the past. I think one of the canary in the mine issues for us is the Old River Channel. I think that around Lakeview Terrace and Estates, we're seeing environmental injustices right before our eyes. I did get a tour of exactly what I'm talking about in East Cleveland and saw that injustice. We made calls. We helped remedy the situation. But I want our citizens, whether it's air particulate matter that's been going for too long into kids' bedrooms in the Lakeview Terrace over the Old River Channel, and this is not a new mayor, this has been long-standing, decades-long problem, or if it's in East Cleveland and there's dumping issues, I want in real time for the citizens to talk to us, and that I think creates equity. Information and communication vehicles and response is equity.
I would just say making sure that we, not just as elected officials, but our staff, continue to be approximate to these problems. that we are bringing people inside to help work on these solutions and address these issues. That's the best thing we can do in terms of making sure we keep our eyes and ears and our feet on the ground and not being removed from the problem. And I think the more we can empower everyday people with the resources and the power to act, the quicker we'll address and solve these problems. The role of government isn't to say, I have the answer. The role of government is to say, what do you need and how can government help you address and find the answer? And that's a big part of my philosophy of governing in terms of how I think about this work.
Thank you both there. Thank you all. For our last question, as we sit here in front of a lot of enthusiastic environmental advocates, what is the plan to ensure community participation and engagement in democratic processes and integrated planning? So we'll start with Mayor Bibb.
I think we're showing it here, right? Making sure that we continue to have these kind of conversations. You guys put up the old OEC policy recommendations from the 2021 campaign, and Director O'Keefe can attest to this. When I was elected and we had our transition effort, and when she joined my administration, I gave her the book. I says, go get everything done in this book. Right? That was the roadmap. And so it's important that you hold me accountable to getting as many of those things done as we possibly can. I might need some more time for a second term to get more done. But I think maintaining this collaboration, maintaining this kind of engagement, and making sure we are building and working together in this work is a big part of how we keep this momentum going.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Executive Romaine?
I think I dipped into it in the last response about just, communication vehicles to have a two-way conversation and action plan for climate injustice. And so that, I think I'm going to continue to build that. I could use, for those who are interested in that world, some assistance kind of making sure we can syndicate that and get that off the ground. This would, again, be through a county information service platform that would actually interface with our residents about environmental injustices and many more things, but it all relates to climate. So that I've already expounded on. One thing we haven't talked about tonight, I just want to bring up is, the next generation. I have a 15 and a 14-year-old, and my 14-year-old, probably sometime last year, came home from school and said, Dad, what are we going to do? And he was, in science class, and thank God his science teacher was speaking truth to him about climate. And he's, what are we going to do? And I said, Joe, you got to get engaged and involved, and we got to be part of the solution together. But I'm hopeful as next gen goes. I know that's kind of a broad brush to use. I'm hopeful, but I think engagement matters. By the way, I got to just sidebar. They love the mayor. We talk about you often. He's been over, and you've seen the kids, and they just say, "Here, you and Audrey talk the same language." So, but back to the point. I don't know, I hate to even end on this comment, but some of you know our family supported a bike trail on the neighborhood we live in. Some of you, and I'm with it. I just wanted to see it happen, but thank you. You guys know the draft.
Talking about NIMBYism.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a sobering encounter did my kids experience when I brought them to a planning meeting, and somebody at the front door of that particular meeting said, "This isn't a kids meeting." And I said, it's always a kids' meeting, all right? So we really kind of broke down the doors because they're our future, 100% of our future, on planning and a better climate. So I am hopeful. Last thing, just on COP, the COP trend's young, and it's fun to see from all over the world students, graduate students, new young professionals out at COP just engaged and really engaged on solutions. So I think everything we can do to put that together. Maybe one commercial, Mayor Bibb and I have, together with the foundations, courted Climate Leadership Conference coming up May 21st in town, and we're going to have leaders from around the country here and also our neighbors in Canada. We're going to have leaders here in Cleveland. I'd like to see some dedication to student engagement on that particular day, but look, it's every day, right? Anything you can do to bring in some of your organizations, student apprentices, summer interns, whether you can pay them or not, let's get them here and let's get them in the conversation. Just engage them. that's what I want to leave you with, is engage our young next generation.
Thank you very much. And speaking of the next generation, I do want to shout out Angela Yeager from Louisville, the environmental seminar. Bring a lot of good work with your students over there in Louisville. So thank you all your students in video, don't I? We'll do that soon. But can we please, thank you guys both for doing this. We really appreciate you. Can we get another round of applause for our great leaders in this region? Thank you both. Well, this concludes our State of the Environment panel. I am inspired by the collective commitment that we share towards safeguarding our planet. So thank you to Mayor Bibb, thank you to Executive Ronayne, thank you for your unwavering dedication to the environment. I want to give a huge shout out to all of our coalition partners from the Cleveland Environmental Advocacy Coalition, because we can't do this work alone. So we can give them another round of applause, please. And then lastly, but surely not least, we want to thank you to our host, Cleveland Public Library. You guys have been so gracious in having us here. You guys have been amazing hosts. So thank you guys for having us. So another round of applause for the Cleveland Public Library.